Hello, Dr. Webster, and in my last video series on the loyalty of Cancer Care Ontario and their oncologists, I stated that it is undeniable that Cancer Care Ontario is not a friend of our patients. They are not there, as they would tell you, to determine what's best for cancer care patients. They are there as enablers of Ontario politicians to enable healthcare agenda that victimizes our patients. So in this companion video, I'm going to be speaking directly to some of the people that are involved in this process. And I can assure you they're all very proud of what they've accomplished on behalf of Ontario's politicians, accomplishments, however, which Canadian and international medical experts have condemned, calling it a, quotes, capricious process to use a scientifically baseless tool called evidence-based medicine, and quotes, to block Ontario patients from PET, the methods they've stooped to have being officially declared unethical and even immoral. But their only concern is the annoyance of me refusing to back down from their threats against me because I continue to demand to defend their actions. Now, therefore, Dr. Sherar, President and CEO of Cancer Care Ontario, and your colleagues, what are you going to do now that you've seen these particular series of videos? Are you again going to call the oncologists and tell them to ramp up even more of their threats against me? You're going to report me again to the Ontario College of Physicians and Surgeons, you know, that body that's supposed to protect patients from bad doctors like me. In a previous video, I talked about there is a malignancy infiltrating Ontario's healthcare system, and that malignancy is Cancer Care Ontario, and these are some of their victims. And on a daily basis, I see the impact of your total disregard for Ontario's patients in return for presumably whatever favors and promotions and sweet deals you get from Ontario's politicians for the great job you've done for them. The harm done to patients by not having proper access to PET includes unnecessary but deliberate delays in time to diagnosis and treatment, with clear examples where any opportunity for a cure is missed and leading to premature and unnecessary deaths. Unnecessary high-risk biopsy procedures, which complications leading to hospitalization, even the risk of death from these unnecessary, unavoidable invasive investigations had they have had PET scans. Unnecessary exposure to harmful radiation from all but useless CTs, which then increases the patient's risk of cancer. Inappropriate staging of patients where PET or CT and MR are wrong in an average of 30% of the time, leading to inappropriate treatment plans. Inadequate access of PET CT scans to determine responses to therapy before 6 cycles are up, and if they're not working, to change to a hopefully more effective therapy. And of course, continuing highly toxic palliative therapies and damage to a patient's quality of life when these therapies are doomed, and all it does is ruin the what remaining life that these patients have with their families and loved ones. But of no concern to you, of course, is it? Now, further, although the major use for PET is in every aspect of cancer patient management, it has many other uses the rest of the world has known about for a very long time. And for example, with the aging baby boomers, there's going to be a very significant concern about, do I have dementia, and also the incidence of dementia. And although there aren't any great therapies at the moment, there are certainly some coming down the tube. But what everyone agrees, and even when the therapies are there, it's absolutely critical to start those therapies as soon as possible. And what the rest of the world has known, as I said, for a very long time, is that FDG PET imaging can detect the Alzheimer's disease and or dementias and classify the types of dementia at a very, very early stage. A recent paper has shown an interesting link between menopause, estrogen levels, and dementia and women, and we can detect women at risk for that. There's another type called Lewy body dementia, for example. You may have heard of that. Robin Williams had that, and the only way Mr. Williams could have known that, short of an autopsy, is with PET scanning. In 2017, Michael J. Fox Foundation and the Tau Consortium announced partnership to develop new imaging tools for devastating neurodegenerative diseases. And this is an example of a Tau PET image and an FDG PET imaging. It has multiple other uses, including inflammatory disorders. This is a patient with sarcoidosis. Here we were able to find an abscess in the patient's pelvis. It has very amazing uses in cardiac imaging, and if used properly, we could do it actually cheaper and much better than we currently are. But according to these people, there's absolutely no quality evidence that we should be routinely using PET in any of these things and more that I haven't talked about yet. Now, isn't that right, Dr. Dobranowski? Dr. Dobranowski is the provincial head of Cancer Care Imaging Program in all aspects of PET. Now, Dr. Dobranowski has absolutely no training in PET, but when all you need to do is manufacture evidence to justify what politicians have decided to fund, who really needs to know anything about PET? Right, Dr. Dobranowski? Now, I've repeatedly said on my media site, social media, that if you have cancer, you should consider leaving Ontario immediately. And if based on some of the information I've given you, you're now convinced that Ontario's oncologists are acting as agents of Cancer Care Ontario to implement the mandate they've been given to discredit, delay, and block PET, then the matter reaches a whole new level of urgency, especially if you or one of your loved ones have cancer. Now, this isn't a very practical solution, and therefore I will continue to get the facts out to you in spite of the threats against me by Cancer Care Ontario. And if your faith is now shaken in Ontario's healthcare system and you have come to the realization what the Canadian and international medical experts have been complaining about all these years and pointing out, then hopefully you will be part of my social media efforts to force the Ontario government to finally defend their actions as to how they make critical healthcare policy, not on just on PET obviously, but all other aspects of our healthcare. In truth, our patients are simply pawns and victims in the efforts of politicians from, as you will see, all three political parties for whatever economic and political reasons they have. So what I'm going to be doing is giving a short series of cases to demonstrate the claims I've talked about above or the uses of PET, and you will have a better understanding of what it means to live in Ontario where the position of these people is that there is little or no evidence to support the routine use of PET. It is worth remembering the Auditor General's 2017 report that Ontario patients have the least number of PET scans per 1,000 population of any medical jurisdiction offering PET in the world, which you wouldn't have known. But the bad news is that up to 90% of the indications CCO has come up with for their political masters are the opposite of the entire world expert body of opinion. The impact on patients is devastating. Now, a lawsuit by a colon cancer patient from Quebec against the Quebec government related to issues around PET led eventually to Quebec now having the most extensive use of PET in Canada. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I would suggest that if you recognize yourself in one of these videos I will be putting out about the impact on patient and realize that you might also be a victim of Ontario's so-called evidence-based healthcare system and you do choose to sue those responsible, I would suggest you have a very strong case. What I can tell you is that there will be no shortage of documents and no shortage of actual medical experts to support you in your case. So, Dr. Sherar and colleagues, what you have perpetrated on Ontario patients is unconscionable, unethical, and even immoral. Shame on you. So this is my video sites, my website, and my social media sites. Please do what you can to get this information out. Otherwise, you too may find yourself a victim and in the crosshairs of the Ontario's politicians, and I've said that will be detrimental to your health. Thanks for watching.